Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. Well, good evening actually now. It's Saturday, uh, November 7th, 2020. And this is JP Alexander for the Rabid Dogs Unleashed. And I'm going to list my 10 favorite, the 10 best, top 10 best high school films with quite a few honorable mentions. When I say high school films, I don't mean it takes place all in high school, but it's like all the main characters are basically in high school and coming of age films and some comedies and mostly actually kind of funny high school times, growing up and what we all went through. And of course, a lot of these are from my childhood that I could relate to because I graduated high school in 1983. So I was, I graduated high school in 1983. So I was in that era for a lot of high school films. A lot of these are from the 80s. But then that's when the Brat Pack was out. That's when America really got into making high school films. I mean, John Hughes, I'm going to draw his name out there, was a big contributor to the Rat Pack and to that kind of genre of film. Before him, you had good high school films here and there, but not really a whole chunk of them like he did. He made like a bunch, and then he got into more adult theme films, which were really good too. But his high school films really put high school movies on a map in the Rat Pack at that time, and a few of them are in here. So let me get started. Number 10. These first few, the first two, I would say, are not really high school movies. They are, but they have a bigger message than just being in high school or the antics of high school. Even though a lot of it takes place in high schools, and the main characters are in high school, but I would not say they're high school movies. These two films I would have higher than most of the other films on this list, but I put them 9 and 10 because they're not, quote unquote, high school movies. If I put one of these as number one, some people might be, hey, that's not a high school movie, so that's why I have them as 9 and 10. Number 10, The Karate Kid. Again, a lot of people would say that's a high school movie. Well, yeah, I mean they met each other in high school. Daniel Russo and Johnny Lawrence, and a lot of it was in high school. That's where he met the girl Elizabeth Shue, Allie, and yeah, that's when a lot of his problems were happening when he moved from New Jersey to California and he changed schools and a new kid on the block. Good film, fantastic film. The second one was pretty good too. The third one was just garbage. And Cobra Kai, which came out a couple of years ago, is fantastic. I loved it. I thought it was the perfect way to bring back the film The Karate Kid, which I loved. I grew up on. It was 1984. 1984 is The Karate Kid. And they're going to graduate like 84, 85. So they're around my age group, even though most of some of the actors in there were older than me, actually. Ralph Macchio's a few years older than me, and William Zapka's about my age, I think. But Ralph Macchio plays the perfect, main character in this. Him and Mr. Miyagi. It's a great story of kind of like a father figure to a kid who doesn't have a father. It's a good film. It's a good. If you've never seen it, you got to see it. You're missing out. If you've never seen the series either, Cobra Kai, go check that out because I always thought that Johnny Lawrence was not really a bad kid. He just got the end of the deal. I guess I had to have a bad guy in these movies, and he wasn't even that bad. And I like Cobra Kai because it's really justifying a lot of what he is, and I love the series too. Even though we're not talking about the series, we're talking about the movie. But Karate Kid, great film. Number 9, Back to the Future. Again, not specifically a high school film, even though a lot of it takes place in high school. He's going to class, he's in high school, then he comes back and he meets his parents and they're in high school, and then the high school dance. So it's a lot of it takes place around high school, but it's not really about high school. It's about time travel and what happens if you run across your parents years before. And that's just a horrible thought. I don't want to even think about. In '85, it was kind of like the same 1955. My parents were both like no, my father was 16. My mother was like 12. No, 13 in 1955. So I wouldn't want to meet them in high school. But it would probably be. But they weren't back in high school together. They were in different high schools. They didn't really meet until around the when they were like early 20s. They met and they married when my father was 24. My mother was 21. But not to get off the subject, but just what it would be like in that year, what it would be like seeing your parents in that era. I think it was a great movie, and of course, the second one was really good, and the third one not as good. But just I could talk about Back to the Future all night, but I don't want to. I'm just having it as number 9, and again, not your quintessential high school movie, but I just had to put it on this list because it's a great movie. It would probably be up at the top of my list of what's better in these films. But I'm going to have it as number 9 because, again, not really a quote unquote high school film. Number 8, Breakfast Club. I loved The Breakfast Club. I thought it was good. It was good how you see the jock, and in my high school we used to call them heads, which was a pothead, the jocks, which were the football team, basketball team, whatever, and I guess not the nerds. We used to call them kind of geeks. I don't know, you're faggots, but that's not a good word now to use. And they weren't necessarily gay. I mean, maybe some of them turned out to be. I don't know. Maybe some of them were back then, and they were just, I don't know, and I don't want to get into it and make fun of them because some of them were really good people, and they got abused in high school. But I kind of liked how all of them were represented here. And well, there was 5. There was the princess. If you're gonna put the girls into it, the 3 guys were those 3 stereotypes, but the girls were the princess and the whack job, I guess. And I guess you could put those other 2 in there too. Every high school has a bunch of those. I guess, I mean, I didn't really fit into any clique in high school, and that whole thing about cliques is going to come up a lot in this review of my top 10, because in high school you had all those cliques, and and some movies do it really well, like this, and some movies do it really bad. The one thing I didn't like about this movie was it took place all in one area, the high school library. So it seemed like it would have been. I actually think that maybe they should make a play, the Breakfast Club play. I think that would be really good because it just seems like almost a play because it just takes place in one location, and there's only them 5, and there's only a few other characters like the teacher and the custodian and the parents who drop them off. So it's not really a big cast, and the budget probably wasn't even that big, but it was a good film, and it put some of these people. Some of these people hadn't been known at the time, but John Hughes film, the first John Hughes film that's going to show up here. But I liked it. I think it was a really good made film, and at the time, I thought it was. I watched it in a movie theater, and I really could, I could, I guess, relate to a lot of the characters in this film. That was 1985. Okay, Breakfast Club. Number 7, Clueless, 1995. Clueless. It seems like a surprise because why would I like Clueless from '95? I was like 29 years old in 1995. What would I possibly like in the movie? Clueless. And that's what I thought when I first heard of it. When it first came out, I had heard, and I didn't like Alicia Silverstone. She had been in maybe 1 or 2 other films before. She played the young, sexy girl who was like the Lolita type, and I wasn't looking forward to seeing this. And when I saw it, I really liked it. I thought it was a good film. I think Alicia Silverstone did a fantastic job. She was perfect for this role. Paul Rudd, a young Paul Rudd, perfect for this role. I think it was good. It's about a girl who, is a good girl really, but she's spoiled by her father because he's a high-priced attorney, and her mother died, and he probably spoils her. And it happens. And she's got the friends in school who are really the kind of high-level friends because they all make money in Beverly Hills or what have you. And most of them are assholes, but she's not. She's actually a good, caring person. And I think there was some good relationships in her, in this movie, like her and Paul Rudd had a good relationship. It starts off slow as they're kind of like their parents were married for a while, and then it goes into like you could see how they made a good pair, and then the 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 the, Brendan Meyer, is that his name? The actor, his romance with Brittany Murphy, was really good in this too. Unfortunately, she didn't. She died years ago, but she was fantastic in this film, and I think she was good in this role. Yeah, and her relationship with him is good. And the two teachers that fall in love because of what Alicia Silverstone's character is doing, is just sweet. I mean, they're the most innocent and childlike relationship in the movie. It's kind of funny how the adults have the cutest relationship in the movie, and I thought that was great. And it was directed by Amy E. Heckling, I think her name. I don't know how to pronounce it. And she also directed Fast Times at Ridgemont High, which is going to come up in this, spoiler alert. She's a great director, and I think her at the helm of this really did a fantastic job in Clueless. I think it was a good movie, and I'm surprised. It was one of those movies you see, expect a lot, and you're like pleasantly surprised. Okay, and number uh, bu- 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 number 6, yeah, American Pie, 1999. American Pie, another film. I was 32 at the 33 at the time when it came out, and one of those films again. I was like, watch this. I'm too old to be watching high school movies. But then when I saw it, I really enjoyed it, and the second one was really good too. The third one, American Wedding, was not as good, and the last one, American Union, years later, I actually liked a lot too. So I think all in all, the American Pie franchise, I liked it. I liked the characters. So, and it was good. It was like high school. There was a guy who was afraid to go to the bathroom, like me. I was in high school 4 years. I don't think I ever went to the bathroom, and I never did a number two, and I never ran home either. I just held it in. I think maybe that's kind of why I have some constipation problems. But anyway, TMI, too much information for everybody here. That's not what this video is about. But American Pie, good film. I mean, the Jason Biggs character, I loved him. He was like trying to be cool, but he was really a geek. And his friends, and I mean, Oz was the jock, but he had a good heart. And Stifler was the jock who was just a clown, but who was just. But we all know someone like that. And even years later, he was still that way. But they end up rallying around him and help him out, and in some scenes because he wasn't as cool as he thought he was. But I think a great cast. I think it hit all the notes, and I think American Pie was good. All of them. Okay, number 5. Going back to 1984, another John Hughes movie, 16 Candles. People would be saying, well, "Really? You think 16?" I love 16 Candles. I thought it was great. It had the geek, the cool guy, the girl. She was just a common girl. Her sister's getting married, and she's being overlooked, and it's her birthday, and people are like, they forgot a birthday, and it's funny. It was a funny film. It was a serious film. Well, it was a funny film that had a serious core in there, but just the funniness. I mean, Long Duck Dong. I mean, I mean, that character was just hilarious, and of course, Anthony Michael Hall was fantastic in it too. And a young John, what's his name, Cusack, was in this, and he was great too as one of his geeky friends, and it was just good. It was just a lot of up and comers before they hit it big, but I think it was a good film. I mean, it wasn't one of John Hughes' serious films like Breakfast Club, but it just to me it was funny at the time, 1984, and I remember I saw it. I was cracking up. I thought it was one of the funniest films of that era, and I still love it to this day. I could put it on and watch it. Great film. Number 4, 2007. That's the more also one of the more modern ones here. Superbad. Superbad, another film I had no intention of seeing. At the time, I was living overseas when it came out. And I remember me and my ex-wife, who was, I don't know, I was dating her at the time. No. I was married to her at the time. We came back to the States to go skiing. My father had a condo by Mount Snow in Vermont, and we came up there with a friend of mine, this girl I grew up with, and we were gonna ski half a day, and we were gonna hang around the condo in the morning. So we're just hanging around, and then the girl, my friend I grew up with, she brought out a tape and said, "Hey, let's watch this." I rented this, and it was super bad. And I was like, "Oh, I saw that. That looks stupid." And she goes, "I heard it's funny. Let's watch it." So we watched it, and I got to tell you, I cracked up. I thought that movie was really funny. It was kind of like a Candle Say vibe is a candle, 16 Candles. How it's not a serious film. It's a comedy. It's an all-around comedy, just there to make you laugh, and it does. And it's also it makes you, think about high school and about how high school should be about that. It shouldn't be about serious subjects. When I see high school films that are too, I mean, it's serious. Not The Breakfast Club, like A Permanent Record is a good movie with Keanu Reeves, but it's so serious. Nobody in there hit true to me as a real high school kid. They were all like so serious. And well, I'm not saying some high school kids are not serious, but everybody was serious in this movie. It was such a downer movie that I felt, well, there would be some people making jokes about the whole thing. I'm not saying that's right or anything, but me and my friends would probably be the guys who were like just laughing about the whole thing. I'm not saying that's right again, but we wouldn't be the serious type because in high school we were just having fun. We weren't thinking about anything serious. Of course, life hits you over the head later on when life is serious and you realize it. Isn't that one of the worst days of your life when you realize, geez, I'm not going to live forever. There were consequences to my actions, and the way I lived in high school, I can't live anymore. Even though I would love to, because it was carefree and it's just fun, and everything is new to you. So, but Superbad was one of those. These guys are not taking life seriously, and they're just having a good time. I mean, Jonah Hill was great in it. Michael Musena, whatever his name is, he was good in it. Well, Seth Rogen, of course, and Bill Hader as the cops were fantastic. And a young Emma Stone was really good in this too. She's the kind of girl who would have a party, but she doesn't drink. And Jonah Hill thinks he can, get her because he's just. And the fact that he thinks he's just going to get laid, he's just he knows he's not going to get laid the whole film. He just it has you got to give him an A for like effort and all, and the fact that he's so confident about getting. It's almost like really to his friends he should say I'm. But of course, he's not going to say that. He should say, I'm really not sure of myself. And the guy who played McLovin was great, too. It was just a funny, funny film. You could say McLovin to a lot of people now and they just start cracking up, Number 3, 1993's Dazed and Confused. Again, I was in my late 20s at this point, probably 26 at this point when I saw this film, Dazed and Confused, when it came out. So I was probably like a little 12-foot, I think. But the time period was supposed to be 1976. So I think it really captured that era. I started high school in 1979. So it was a little bit out of my wheelhouse. But the cars I could really associate with, not the band of Cars, the cars in the movie. Because the GTO and a Duster. One of my friends had a 198 slant 6 Duster. That was as slow as shit, but it was the only car we had to drive around in at the time. His parents had it, and they gave it to him, and he was driving us around. And I do remember that. I do remember that those cars in that era, and '76, and the music and the clothes, and so I do remember that. I was probably in middle school at the time, but there was actually kids in middle school in this time. This movie's about something I guess that happens down in Texas, because I grew up in New York, Long Island. It didn't happen there. We didn't like the juniors who were graduating their junior year, going into senior year, didn't haze the seniors from middle school who were going to become the freshmen the following year. It was almost like we're going to be the seniors, going to be the freshmen. So the whole summer between when we graduate, we're graduating 11th grade, you're graduating 8th grade. It's our job to haze you. Well, we never had that, so I never heard of that. So I guess maybe in Texas that was something, because Richard Linklater, who directed this, is a great filmmaker. I think fantastic filmmaker, and I'm going to believe this was something that he did in his youth, probably in around 1976 era. He probably seems like he would have been one of the uh, the seniors, at that point. I don't know, but it seems like it seems. I mean, if he says that happened, then okay. And but it makes for a good, because you show the older kids and the younger kids, and I would have been one of the younger kids in real life around that age. I was probably 1976. I was like 10. I was probably 10, so I was probably younger than these kids were. Actually, as a matter of fact, but I was probably starting middle school, not finishing middle school at that point. But yeah, and a lot of stars, future stars, were in this movie, like Ben Affleck in a small role. Jason London, I think his name was. Yeah, he was one of the main characters. Randall Tex, no, Randall Pink Floyd. Randall Tex, that's a boxer. Uh, yeah, Randall Pink Floyd. He was great, I think, because it showed how I think high school really was. Like, you got people who were the geeks, but they're not that geeky. They had kind of longish hair, so they were trying to be cool. They weren't geeky like the Revenge of the Nerds, which I think Revenge of the Nerds was a horrible film because it was just stereotypical how the jocks, the quintessential stereotypical jocks and the quintessential stereotypical nerds, like they're all smart and they haven't got laid, and they Star Trek or something. That's not geeks are not that geekish. Most of them. This was so over the top that it was a comedy, so I guess you could forgive it to a point. But I never liked that movie because I think it was too ridiculous. But this movie was good because the geeks are not that geeky, and the jocks could also smoke pot sometimes, and the heads were kind of cool. So they were all kind of hanging out together. And this guy, Randall Pink Floyd, kind of went in and out. He was the quarterback, but he was also a pothead, and he also kind of played cards with the geeks. So they all get together at the last day of school, and they all they go to a party in the woods, and they drink a beer, and the kegger and the kegs, and I think I could relate to that because when I was young, it was all, how many kegs did that party have? It was a 4-kegger, like that kind of thing. And the next day, we somebody had put the keg in the backseat of his car. We drove around drinking it. So a lot of those kind of stupid things, but I could relate to a lot of it. And Matthew McConaughey, a lot of people talk about in this film, and it was his first film, I guess, and it was his big break. But I think he's kind of I think I put him and John Belushi and Sean Penn in the same category for 3 movies they did. John Belushi as Blutowski in Animal House, which is a college film, not a high school film. Sean Penn in Fast Times at Ridgemont High, which is going to come up in this list later on. Him as Jeff Spicoli and Matthew McConaughey in this film, because 1993, Days Are Confused, because they're not in the movie a lot, but the scenes they're in, they steal. Every scene they're in, they steal, but they're not even that big of a part of the movie. There's other people in the movie who are more, and I think in this movie, the cast is great. Everybody, the supporting cast, everybody is perfectly cast in this movie. So Days of Confused was really, again, another movie I could watch anytime. And it was marketed as a pot film, and I don't really think that's what it was at all. And I kind of hated that it was marketed like that. They were trying to market it as like, cool, man, we're smoking weed. And I didn't get that because it had so much more to it. It was way smarter film than just a bunch of guys smoking weed, talking about. Even the guy who smoked weed was kind of smart. He was coming up with some interesting things that happen when you smoke weed, I guess, or you come up with, But I think it's better than just a pot film, Number 2, I'm already to number 2 already. 1973's, going way back there. American Graffiti. People might say that's a high school film. Yeah, it was actually the last day of summer before they go to college. So they're still technically, they haven't started college yet, so they're technically still high school kids. It's the summer before they start college or start getting jobs or whatever. And I think it's a good film because, I can relate to it. I think a lot of kids can relate to it over the summer before you start college or something. And I think I think every summer when I was a kid was a big deal. And then the last day of summer was like, oh, trip. We got to go back to school. And this was even more of a big shock because you weren't just start school again, you were starting a whole life, especially if you were one of the guys, Richard Dreyfuss and Ron Howard character, to actually go away, to actually have the chance to go away, to fly someplace to the East Coast and go to college. And I mean, that must have been just fearful for these guys back in 1962, whatever it was. And it was directed by a younger George Lucas, one of his first, probably his third film or his second film. And I think it was a great coming of age film, and it was a serious film. It wasn't a comedy, but there was some funny parts in it, obviously. But I just love the fact that I mean, that you had everybody. Well, you had all the guys represented. You had the cool guy, John Milner, who was older than them. He was kind of like the Matthew McConaughey character in Dazed and Confused, but that was played more for laughs. But this guy's just hanging out in the town. Like, I'm still cruising up and down the town, the strip. And it's like, dude, you're 24, 25 years old. It's kind of getting sad. And you're hanging out with these high school kids. And they're going to go off to college. And you are just working on cars and trying to not be beat in drag racing. Like, is there really a future in that? So you kind of saw that character. You see the Toad. I forget what his name was. Charles Martin Smith played it, and it was just he was again a geeky kid whose parents probably didn't have a lot of money, and he wasn't going to college because he was a geeky kid but not that smart. So he wasn't going to college, and he didn't care. He was just like, I'm going to hang around the strip with John Milner. He looks up to him, and then you had the Ron Howard character, who was kind of cool, and girls liked him. He was a good-looking guy. He had a girlfriend. The only four to have a girlfriend, for like the whole high school time, and other girls liked him, and he was that kind of popular guy. And then you had the Richard Dreyfuss character, who was kind of a nerd too. But he was smarter than the rest of them. You could tell, and at the end, it really shows. But I had heard that. Three of the characters, the Milner character, the Charles Martin Smith, that character, and the Richard Dreyfuss character were all three composites of like what George Lucas was doing during high school. He was drag racing. He was kind of a geek probably when he got in high school, went into drag racing, and then when he graduated, he became serious and went off to college like the Richard Dreyfuss character. And I just like how it shows just how like you got to get serious, and how at the end when it shows what they did, it's kind of fictional characters, but it tells you what they did. And it's like, of course, the most successful one was the one who went to college, and the other one who didn't go to college, he married his girlfriend and sell insurance, and then the other two died young, which is kind of like, I don't know if that's what that's saying, but I guess it's saying go off to college and just at least experience it. If you don't stay, you experience it at least, And a lot of great actors in this who came out to be, a younger Harrison Ford, of course, Richard Dreyfuss, Suzanne Summers, just a lot of future, Cindy Williams, Ron Howard. Ron Howard was known before that, but Andy Griffith. But he actually left, he was in colleges taking like film school, and he acted in this, which led to, probably led to Happy Days, which maybe he's not too happy about because it derailed his, but it did give him the opportunity to start directing. So he is where he is now, probably because of Happy Days. But this was one of my number two. This is my number two, one of my favorite coming of age high school films, American Graffiti, 1973. Here's honorable mentions. I'm going to go back for a few of these. Days Confused. Rebel Without Cause, 1955. I gotta mention it because it's a classic. I didn't love it. I didn't love it myself, but I gotta mention it. It is a classic, and it's one of the first, even though I didn't really see a lot of high school in that movie. They're supposedly in high school, but you didn't get to see a lot of it. But I think, James Dean was James Dean in it. He was too cool for school, and Natalie Wood was great in it, and then Sal Mineo, was good in it. It was just a good film, and a young Dennis Hopper was in this too. He was in 2 of 3 of. He was also in Giant, which is James Dean movies. So two of Dean's dream movies, Dennis Hopper was in. So that's a good trivia question. And this is the one that put James Dean on the map. But for my liking, maybe it's a little pre-dated for me. Also from 1955, Blackboard Jungle. I'm going to say that because it was in black and white, and it's really it's probably one of the first high school movies that, even though the main character was a teacher in high school, I'm just going to mention it. See, young Sidney Poitier plays one of the students. A young Morrow, or Vic Morrow, plays a student in this, a bad student, as opposed to Sidney Poitier plays a good student. And it's just, it's just showing you how high school was even getting tough back then, getting with gangs and stuff. And the theme song was "Rock Around the Clock" by Bill Haley and the Comets. That was one of the first rock songs ever, and this is 1955. And he kind of almost created the sound of what black R&B and country music mixed together would sound like, and that became what we now know as rock and roll. And I think that was really the movie's also known for that. But I think it was a good film, also about a teacher trying to make a difference to high school kids, who some of them you probably just can't help. So that was a good film. I haven't seen it in a while. 1955's Blackboard Jungle. 1985, Heaven Help Us. Remember that movie with a young Andrew McCarthy, who I liked, but he was always the serious Brett Packer, Andrew McCarthy, I liked that. I liked him in this movie. And then Matt Dillon's brother, Kevin Dillon, was great in this movie. Patrick Dempsey, a young Patrick Dempsey was great in this movie. It was just, I thought it was a funny movie. It was like 1962 or something. It's like kids in a Catholic high school. And it was like how the Catholic, being a Catholic myself, or being raised one, not really following it anymore. God knows I don't live that kind of lifestyle. I can kind of relate to a lot of the, hitting of the hand and, the brutality, the monks or whatever it was, the fathers, or I don't know what they were, but my brother went to a Catholic high school, so he told me stories that I could pick right out of this movie. And I also think Mary Stuart Masterson, who was in this, I think she's always been like one of the girls that back in the 80s I said, I could date a girl like that. I would love a girl like that. That girl's my type, with the short blonde hair and kind of the androgynous look to her. I always thought she was underrated as an actress. I thought she was good. They always put her in movies like this, and they just drew away films. But I always liked her. I thought she was just the everyday girl, and also pretty damn hot, and looked very, very 80s, That's Heaven Help Us, 1985. Can't Buy Me Love, 1987. Talking about Patrick Dempsey. Good movie where the geek pays the popular girl money to date him for a few weeks, and then her friends all think he's cool, and they start dating him, and it's really like, how do you not know this guy was a geek the whole time? You didn't even know he was there. It's like how I found in high school. I'm sitting behind this girl who probably sat in front of me for years in high school, never even know who the hell I was. If I saw half the people now who were popular, part of the popular clique in high school, if I said to them now, hey, you remember, they're probably, I don't remember them either. So let me not kid myself. Let me not kid you. I don't know who they are. But if I ever said, I remember you from high school, they'll be like, who the hell were you? And I'll show them in the yearbook, and they'll be like, I don't even remember you at all, ever seeing you, I never saw that dude, That's kind of like this film. And I think it was just a good film. Again, how the geeks really just want to get through high school. High school's tough enough being a popular person, let alone being a geek. And I think when the geek is talking about how his other geek friend and one of the popular guys, how they used to all hang out together before there was the cool and not the cool, and the popular and not the popular, and everything like that. And that's probably high school. High school's a tough. It's kind of like adulthood in some ways, but adulthood you just don't talk about it. Like the difference between adulthood and high school is probably you just don't talk about it as much when you get older, because there's the cool guys, the guys who are like on the fast track, the guys who are who wear the suits, the guys who succeeded, and the geeks are like Milton in Office Space, kind of like that guy. And the cool guys are just not going to make fun of Milton, but in high school they would beat the shit out of Milton every day. They would throw things at Milton. They would make Milton's life horrible. But when you get older, you can't do that because you get you get sued or something. That's not cool to do in the workplace. But in high school, that's perfectly fine. Well, especially since when I went to high school back in the '80s. Uh, so I can relate to a film like this. And when you get older, you just make fun of him to other people, but you go, oh, the guy's still hanging around here for that loser. You laugh about it, but then you see him in work, you're like, hey Milton, what's up? How you doing? Because that's what adults do. They don't go down to that level unless they're drunk talking to their friends. Then we all go back to high school times. Some other films I want to talk about. Grease, 1978. I know a lot of people would be like, that's a high school film? Everybody in there was so old. Yes, but it was a musical, so you could almost forgive the fact that Stockard Channing was like 32, 33. But she's perfect for the part she plays. And Olivia Newton-John was like probably 29. She was perfect. John Travolta was 24. He was perfect. And it was just, the movie was just great. Even though not everybody had the best singing voice, but I think it was just a good movie. I saw it. I was like 12 when that movie came out, and I saw it in the movie theater, and I loved it. I mean, it was PG, but it had kind of some awe feeling to it. It was kind of like there was sex going on, but you weren't supposed to know, and that kind of thing. So I remember didn't even know really what sex was at that point, being 12. I mean, maybe I had been like, oh my God, what do men and women do together, But this film kind of showed, a PG version of it, but it was still, for me, that's why I liked it, because it was like kind of cool. And people think it's like a geeky film, but I think there's some hidden thing. I think this movie's not geeky at all. I think it has some hidden things to it that made you go, it's coming across like a geeky film to get the PG rating, but it's actually pretty, on the edge sometimes, and it's supposed to be the 1956 or whatever it's supposed to be, 1957. But I liked that it was based on a musical, and it was only one of the only musical movies I like. I don't like musicals at all, but the music was really good, and I'm going to put it as one of my own mentions. 1978, Grease. What's this other one I have here? See, I'm so blind, I can't even. Okay, here's two films I'm going to mention that are college films, not high school films. I'm going to mention them anyway. Animal House from 1978, also great college film. But two of the members, two of the guys in there were freshmen in high school. So in college. I guess they were previously in high school, but it kind of has the feel of a high school movie since they're so childish. These are college kids who probably still have the mentality of high school kids, But Animal House is great. One of the first really raunchy films that could have been a high school film, but it's a college film, but it's still pretty damn funny. In 1978, before the Brat Pack, I think a classic film that I got to mention here. Another one, The Short Thing. The Short Thing I loved when it came out in 1980. What is it, from 1985, 84, 83? It was an early film I saw. I was probably 1983, and I remember Cusack, a young John Cusack. But John Cusack's about my age, so he was probably high school age in this, on the first year of college. And this is a recent high school graduate who's going to college, and that's actually the first scene in the movie. It's his last, like in the summer, one of the last days of summer after high school before he starts college, and it's just a good film about this guy who's not growing up, who's kind of like funny. And I knew a guy I grew up with who I knew in the 80s. This guy was just like John Cusack in this. He's just always joking around. A pretty intelligent guy, but just always joking around, being a clown. And here he finally meets the girl of his dreams, but he just doesn't know it. And he thinks the girl of his dreams is a short thing, but it's really not. And you got to see it. If you haven't seen it, please see it. It's directed by Rob Reiner, and he's a great filmmaker. So it was just a very, one of my all-time favorite. But it's not a high school movie. It's a college movie. To be totally honest. Another film I want to mention, and this is people are gonna be like, I think some people are gonna know what I'm talking about if you're around my age. 1977's The Van. Does anybody remember that? It was it wasn't just the van. It was a bunch of movies around that time. There was another one, Van Nuys Boulevard. That probably wasn't a high school film, but the van was a high school film. The main character was in high school, and it had a cast of kids who were like probably in their 20s, not high school kids at all. This is before the Brat Pack when they really got kids to play kids. This is before that when they had like 25-year-olds play 18-year-olds, and it was like a soft core porn, kind of. Even though I don't know if I'd call it that now. I mean, it's pretty lame now, but he got a van and he's trying to pick up girls and have sex in the van. So it was California, the '70s California vibe to it. Yeah, all the girls. And I remember this one girl was in that movie. She was in a bunch of them, and she was always the good-looking girl with a great body, who wasn't much of an actress, but she could pass for 18, but she was probably 23 in real life. And she was in a lot of these, just getting naked, making out with guys in the back of the van. And it was like, she's having sex in the back of the van with the guy, and her breasts. It's just, and me when I was young, I used to watch this on Showtime, and I remember like I used to sneak up because it was on like 2 o'clock in the morning. My parents would be asleep, and I'd just wake up and I'd go downstairs really quietly, and I put on HBO, and I had like the knob with 80 channels on or something, and I find HBO and I put it on really low, and I'd watch The Van or something, or movies like that. And I like those movies because they were like high school movies for the '70s and pre Brat Pack and pre really anybody taking care about what high school is really like, and just showing, it's just showing young couples having sex. That's really what it is. It's just a stupid kids, but I liked them because I was the age where I was starting to know what nudity was and sex was, and just seeing this was my first I guess exposure to porn, but it wasn't really porn. But that's why I like movies like The Van and those era movies. And if you watch this and you want to put in comments some other films you think from the '70s that was I had to actually look it up from the '70s. This movie The Van, and I just remember he got the van, and a friend of mine had a van with a bed in the back, but it was a piece of shit van, and he wasn't getting laid in it like this guy was. This guy seemed to be picking up girls. As soon as he got the van, he was picking up girls left and right, Stupid, yeah. I mean, But at the time, I was 11, so I 12. I thought it was, a really, good movie in my first, experience with high school movies. Before I was in high school, like I can't wait to get to high school so I can get a van. Okay, and my number one high school movie, and this makes sense because the time it came out, I was probably starting my senior year in high school, which these people, because the beginning of the movie was the end of the summer of like 1982, probably, or 1981, going into the senior year. It was released 1982. Maybe it was filmed 1981. Maybe the senior year, maybe the last day of summer 1981, going into the school year 1982, 81-82 school year. Fast Times at Ridgemont High. I thought that was one of the best because they had the mall scene was perfect. We used to hang at the mall, but our mall wasn't as exciting as this mall was. But we used to go to the mall. The movie theater was in the mall. The food court was in the mall. You just walk around and you shop, but you don't shop. You don't have any money. You just go walking in stores because you got nothing to do when you're killing time, and you're trying to pick up girls in the mall. And you're not picking up girls in the mall. You're just hanging around trying to meet people. I know him from a class I got. So, but First Time to Ridgemont High was it was good. You had you had the cool guys like Brad. You had the stoner types like Jeff Spicoli, Sean Penn. And I like this film because a lot of the actors went on to be, of course, Sean Penn, and went on to become big, and Nicolas Cage, and he played one of Judge Reinhold. Judge Reinhold played the cool guy, but his one of his friends was Nicolas Cage. And then when I actually read about the making of that, it was actually directed by Amy. Was it written by her or directed by her? No, I think it was written by Cameron Crowe, directed by her, before Cameron Crowe started to make movies. Amy Hickling, who did, was it Clueless, which I have further down on this list, but she directed this also, I believe. And it was just a great, I think, directing effort on her part, and the movie was just it just rang true. And actually, a small little coincidence here, a trivia question. Jason Jennifer Jason Lee, Jennifer Jason Lee, Jennifer something Lee, Jennifer Lee, Jennifer whatever her name is. Anyway, she was one of the main people in this film, one of the main high school students, and her father was Vic Morrow of Blackboard Jungle fame, 1955. Yeah, small little coincidence. They don't have the same name, but that was her father. Yes, and she was in this movie. She played this innocent girl, and Phoebe Cates was her best friend, and that classic scene where Judge Reinhold is dreaming of with the Cars moving in stereo, which is a great song. I love the Cars' first three albums. This is from the first album, the first Cars album, 1977, 78 was the first album, I believe. 77, 78 was the first Cars album. I had the first Cars album. That Candy-O and the not Pyromania, Panorama, I think it was called. So anyway, going back to the movie, it's not about the Cars, it's about this movie. But they had the Cars movie in stereo, and he's dreaming about her coming out of the pool, and she takes the top off, and she's just gorgeous body. Natural, of course, all natural. And she was 19 at the time. So, being a kid myself who was around, 16, high school, I looked at her like, oh, that would be, imagine a girl like me dating a girl like this in high school. Of course, that never happened. That would never happen. But just, looking at her and seeing Brad, imagining her come onto Brad. And of course, what the truth was he was masturbating in the bathroom, which is pretty sad. But it's almost like the complete letdown where you're dreaming of this. And then suddenly she walks in the room and she's like, ugh, because she's scared because you're masturbating. And just the level of shame. And it was, she didn't know, it was disgusting enough that she knew he was masturbating, but she didn't know that he was thinking about her. And no, she wasn't walking out of the pool, taking her top off. Brad, I've always dreamed about you. She walked to that pool and got water in her ear and had to go to the bathroom to get it out. I got water in my ear. So it wasn't quite as sexy as, but when we jerk off, do we really jerk off to reality, or do we jerk off to things that we wish were reality, but only reality in porno movies? Is our life just a wannabe porno movie? Yeah, I think it is. But anyway, yeah, Past on Wedgemont High, but yeah, no, when I saw it, I was going, I said before, I saw the making of it. It was great how, Sean Penn, they already had him locked in, but they were interviewing other people, and Ali Sheedy was living with Eric Stoltz and Andrew Edwards at the time. I think she was dating Eric Stoltz, and she said, oh, I'm going for, I think she was reading for Jennifer Lee part. And yeah, she was reading for that part. And, she invited them to come along, and they came along. And then, one of the casting agents goes, oh, just read for the part of Jessica Coley, both of them. And they were so good that the guy said, somebody said, we wanted to hire him, but we already had, we didn't tell them that we had Sean locked in. But we said, hey, wait a minute, Jessica Coley needs friends. Let's give him two stoner buddies, And that's what Eric Stoltz and Anthony Edwards ended up being. And they were called, in the casting, Eric Stoltz is Stoner Bud 1 and Anthony Edwards is Stoner Bud 2. Or maybe it was Anthony Edwards is Stoner Bud 1. I don't know. But it's just funny how they didn't have names. It was just Stoner Bud 1 and Stoner Bud 2. And how Nicolas Cage read for the Brad part, which Judge Reinhold got, but he was 17. So if they did, everybody else in the movie was over 20, except Phoebe Cates was 19, but she was over 18. But if you're not over 18, like Nicolas Cage was 17, you couldn't work 8 hours a day or something. So they said, if we're gonna have one of the main parts, the Brad part, the Judge Reinhold part, the part that ultimately went to Judge Reinhold, if we would have had that. Filming that, it would have been much tougher to film. Probably would have cost them a lot more money trying to work on the schedule of a 17-year-old. So, and they figured, well, he's actually 3 years younger than Jennifer Lee. How's he going to play her older brother? So it was like those things that kind of came into their mind. So they said, well, we like him. We want to hire him. And also being, Francis Ford Coppola's nephew didn't hurt. They probably were like we got to put him in this movie to make us look good in the eyes of Francis Ford Coppola, unless he wants to hire us for something else. I mean, they could tell me, oh, we just thought he was great, and we wanted him for that part. We always wanted him. We thought he was great. Maybe it's like you thought he was okay, but you knew he was related to Francis Ford Coppola. Maybe. Anyway, it's not about that. It's about this movie. So he was cast as a smaller part as one of Brad's friends. And Judge Reinhold, who the director, one of the director's friends, her boyfriend was Judge Reinhold. And she knew he was an actor. He was actually in Stripes before that, the movie Stripes with Bill Murray and Harold Ramis. Before that, I love the part he was standing there with sunglasses on, and he has a shirt called "Death Before Disco." I thought that was just hysterical, just watching, Judge Reinhold just like being cool with the "Death Before Disco" shirt and stripes. I thought that was good. And when I saw him in this, he was great. And later on in Beverly Hills Cop's movie, he was great. I think he's kind of underrated. I mean, I don't know where he went, but you could probably look him up. He's probably doing little cameos now or something. Judge Reinhold. But I actually thought he was great in this, and I thought Fast and the Rosemont High is my number one favorite high school movie because it just came out when I was in my final year of high school, getting ready for my final year of high school, and I just thought that's what, and it's almost like, again, the geeky kid can't get the girl, and he wants to go, but he's too shy. I was very shy when I was in high school. I was very shy a lot of my life when it comes to women. I never understood them. That's why alcohol became the enabler to pick up women. And then you see when you're sober, you're like, this wasn't as good as it was when I first met her. Well, no, because you were drunk off your ass when you first met her. But this movie was just good about, in high school. And they have the pep rally. And the girls up there, people are just sitting on the bleachers. Like, that's how, we're forced to go to prep rally in high school, but you don't really want to be there. So the people who are cheering, the cheerleaders, you're like looking at them like, I'm not as enthusiastic about this year as you are. So the girl just said, hey, it's hard being up here, And that's kind of like how I could relate to that, because I remember sitting on the bleachers thinking, can we just go back to class? Or can I go back to cutting class or whatever? So, so that's my list of my top 10 high school movies, plus a lot of honorable mentions. And I think high school movies have always been a staple in my life. I mean, back in the 20s and 30s, probably not, because I guess the movies were about adults being adults back then. You remember that? It was about adults being. It wasn't really, when you saw kids, they were hardly even mentioned in movies, now, but through people like, and I also want to give a few other John Hughes shout outs. Pretty in Pink, which I didn't like too much. I didn't like Pretty in Pink because I wasn't a big Molly Ringwald fan, but I think she's aged really well. When I see her now in interviews, she really seems like a very smart person. But at the time, I was never a big fan of hers, so I didn't really like Pretty in Pink. I like 16 Candles because she was the straight person in a very funny film, with the other characters being hysterical. But here, the whole film was just too serious for my liking. And Andrew McCarthy was very serious, and James Spader looked like he was in a different film. Like James Spader was a good actor. I always liked him. I still like him now, but I think he was totally out of his, like, he was 25 at the time around, but he seemed like he was like 35. The way he was acting, it was just. So I didn't really care for Pretty in Pink, but I got to mention it here. I got to mention Ferris Bueller's Day Off. A lot of people are going to say, why don't you have that down? Again, I never liked Matthew Broderick. I never believed him as the cool kid, Like, I see him now and he's a little fat, and that's how I see him. Even back then, I saw him as kind of like that. Kind of like somebody who you'd want to beat up in high school, not somebody you look up to in high school, because he's cool and the girls like him. I don't know, I just didn't see him as that, so maybe that's why I don't like Ferris Bueller's Day Off. And I think what he did to his friend was horrible. He shouldn't have put down his friend like that. Like, the whole movie is putting down his friend. It's like, dude, why are you even hanging out with him for? But anyway, and that girl, I think she was way out of his league in real life. That girl was dating him. I don't know. I just didn't believe it. So I never really liked Ferris Bueller's Day Off. But I got to mention it because it was such a big film. And another movie I did like more, which is pure farce and comedy, the whole movie. It was like, it doesn't come up there as one of John Hughes' best, but if you go to Comic Con, you see them talking about this movie, Weird Science. I actually thought Weird Science was one of his better films because it was just hysterical and just, the references and just the characters. It was good. They make a woman, which is really unbelievable. But just the two leads, Anthony Michael Hall and Ian Mitchell Smith, I think his name was, them playing off each other was just great. And a young Bill Paxton playing the brother of Ian Mitchell Smith was just hysterical. And Kelly LeBrock, gorgeous. And how they put her in this movie is funny because normally a sexy woman like that would be playing, sexy, seductive parts, let's say, but she's playing just a woman they made on the computer, and it's just a total farce of a movie. But seeing them speak at Comic Con now about this movie, the three leads, Ian Mitchell Smith, Anthony Michael Hall, and Kelly LeBrock, is just great. And seeing how they are just talking about the scene wearing diapers on their heads with a young Robert Downey Jr., and about how Robert Downey Jr. and Anthony Michael Hall, believe it or not, actually became really good friends on that show. And, Anthony Michael Hall said he still sees them once in a while. And just, seeing them with diapers on their heads is just a great scene, too. And I think a lot of the movie was just what I remember from high school, because I remember these guys and saying, yeah, these guys are not that bad. They're kind of cool, kind of relating to them. So a lot of what John Hughes did was make you believe, and you could relate to some kids in high school where before you just wanted to beat them up, let's say, or watch them get beat up or make fun of them. But years after high school, you look back and you go, geez, I really had a great time in high school, and I'm glad I went through it. But I don't look, I don't envy anybody going through it again. It's like, John, if you had to go back to a time in your life, would it be high school? No, it would probably be after high school. I'd probably take my college studies a little more seriously. But I don't have any regrets, I guess. I mean, well, I do, of course. If you don't, then, you're a piece of shit. Who doesn't? We all should have regrets. The French singer, I have no regrets. She probably should have had more regrets. Her life probably would have been a little better if she did have regrets. It's kind of funny how people who don't have regrets are people who should have regrets. I do have regrets, but not really from high school. But I would not want to go back to high school. I don't envy any of those people right now because it was tough. And my daughter is going into high school in a couple of years, and I feel bad for her. But what can I do? She's going to have to go through it. We all had to. And I'm glad I got out of it okay. And I'm here to look back at these movies and say, yeah, some of these are really on the mark when it comes to high school. So if you have a chance, if you haven't seen all the movies I mentioned, go see any of them, because I think they're all worth seeing. I'm not going to, okay, let me mention some bad high school movies you stay away from. I mean, what was it? Porky's. Porky's was shit. Porky's came out like 1981. It was garbage. It was stupid high school movie. Porky's the next day, they're all just offensively horrible. Don't watch any of those movies. The Last American, Virgin, a movie called Last American Virgin. It was like 1983. It came out or something. That was a high school movie. It was crap. It was garbage. It was not. It was not good. There's a few. Like movies like that. I just always hated. I thought they were always garbage because there's always junk high school movies drawn in there. Like Iron Eagle was a bad imitation of Top Gun. So just drawn that in there is just like bad movies of the 80s but there was so many bad high school movies of the 80s that I wouldn't rent. So the ones I just mentioned, don't go see. But anyone on this list, you can't go wrong. Even a Blackboard Jungle, if you haven't seen it and it comes up or something, and your father might be like, yeah, your grandfather. I remember this movie when I was a kid. You just go sit down on the couch with your grandfather and watch it and just laugh about how outdated it is, but just also look at it and say, hey, some of those things that are happening, I can relate to. And that's pretty much all I have. It was a long extended, and you probably said I'm long-winded and I don't want to hear anymore, and I can't believe you wasted my time with all this shit. But I think my list is pretty good because I'm not some young kid now, only going back a couple of years. I'm, going back to when high school movies really started to make their mark, which was probably the 70s into the 80s when they probably first became cool, and all the way to Superbad, which I think was a great high school movie. And I'm even drawing something like a Mean Girls with Lindsay Lohan before she became a train wreck. She was, Mean Girls was a good movie, Tina Fey movie. Tina Fey was great in there, acting in there, and I think she was a writer of this movie. And I think Mean Girls was a good. I didn't put that in here because I don't remember. I don't even know if I saw the whole thing, but I remember seeing enough of it to know it was a good film. And Easy A, I think it was, with Emma Stone. Emma Stone's good in almost everything. So I loved her in Easy A, where she was a high school girl who got a bad reputation, but she was really a sweet girl, So movies like that are also more modern ones are worth watching. Ones I wouldn't watch are like, I Know What You Did Last Summer, and it's garbage. I always hated the TV show. This isn't a movie, a television show. I always fucking hated Dawson's Creek. It's so unrealistic. It's so serious. Dawson's crying all the time. He loves this girl. It's just high school, man. High school's supposed to be fun. Get over it. I don't remember half the girls I made out with in high school. I might have made out with. I don't even know girls I had a crush on in high school. I don't remember anything about how it's supposed to be fun. It's supposed to look back on it and go, geez, can't believe the shit I did when I was back there. It's not supposed to be crying over some girl or something. And then one of the students has a sex with one of the teachers. That's not funny. I mean, if a 30-year-old guy had sex with a 17-year-old girl, he'd be in jail. I don't think a 30-year-old woman having sex with a 17-year-old boy, that's cool. Well, okay, if he could say that's cool, and we can all look at that and say it's cool, then why can't some 17-year-old girl say, I knew what I was doing when I slept with that 34-year-old substitute teacher? Right? What are women, dumber than men? I don't think so. So I don't think that should be, in mainstream movies like Dawson's Creek. I think that was just stupid, inappropriate. I think Dawson's Creek was shit. I hated all the actors in that. Even when I see them now, I just go, ugh. And even Beverly Hills 90210 is another one. Really, I go relate to these rich snobs. Like I want to, watch that garbage. I mean, some of the actors may have gone on to do. I mean, Luke Perry I liked. I think he went on to do some good things. And Sharon Doherty I think was a pretty good actress. But some of the other, I mean, just I could not relate to any of that shit. A television show I thought was a good 80s, but it's a good high school, and it's supposed to take place in 1980. Freaks and Geeks. It only lasted one season, but you want to watch a good high school show on television, watch Freaks and Geeks. I think that was probably one of the best, probably the best high school television show I've seen. And the fact that it lasted 1 year means it is good, because it didn't last 10 years like these stupid shit like Dawson's Creek and Beverly Hills 90210, which I loathe both of them. And I can't look at Jason Vanderbeek or whatever his name is ever again, or Katie Holmes, without thinking about that stupid fucking show. My God, that was just I watched 5 minutes of it and I'm like, turn this crap over. What is it? This is a soundtrack. Turn this off. This isn't high school. High school's trying to get blowjobs by women and striking out, but it's swinging my dick at women and missing by a fucking mile. That's what my high school was. That's what most people's high school is. It's super bad. It's Jonah Hill trying to pick up Emma Stone and her going, what are you, a fucking idiot? And him knocking her head and falling to the ground and saying, I'm sorry. That's high school. High school's not Dawson's Creek where you're screwing your teacher. And if it is, call the authorities. But again, I'm losing myself. This is about the good films I've mentioned. Anyway, I gotta know when to end things because I'm really going off here. I'm really starting to lose my cool, and I'm gonna download this because you should see me losing my cool and going off a little bit because that's who I am. Because I can't help myself. Anyway, that was my list of the top 10, which a lot of other ones I mentioned, high school films. And this is JP Alexander for the Rabid Dogs Unleashed. And until next time. Jeez. That's terrible. Until next time, have a good night. Ciao.